Marvel Rivals is doing something that's genuinely astonishing to see in this day and age. Something that I would have never imagined would be happening within the gaming industry. But I guess it seems like things have gotten so out of hand that this is the situation where we've collectively arrived at as a society, and it couldn't be any more depressing. I'm talking about how Marvel Rivals, which is made by a Chinese company, is doing a way better job at representing American comic book heroes than American developers. How is that even possible? How is it that developers from other countries are leaps and bounds better at fulfilling the Western comic book superhero fantasy than we are? Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, someone recently did a comparison of the heroes between Marvel Rivals and the Marvel's Avengers game that came out in 2020. Marvel Rivals being developed by NetEase, a Chinese-based studio, and Marvel Avengers being developed by Crystal Dynamics, an American development studio. And the differences between how these two companies portray the fan-favorite superheroes we all know well and love is night and day. Like, look at these character models and tell me that this isn't just the saddest thing that you've ever seen. First, we got the Marvel Rivals Captain America here, where you can see that the artist clearly put some thought into how to portray him as the stoic super soldier that's supposed to be the symbol of peace. Meanwhile, in the West, we got Captain Alabama here, who looks like he got his costume from Party City. He looks like his wife just told him that he has to be in bed by 9:30. This is what an artist with passion versus an artist without passion looks like. And here we got Marvel Rivals' Iron Man, who looks like a freaking mech from Armored Core 6. Meanwhile, we have Aluminum Man over here, who looks like one of those cheap Chinese knockoff toys that you would find at the Dollar General or something. Except in this case, the cheap knockoff toy was made in the US. There are many more comparisons that this person made, but one of the worst designs in Marvel's Avengers has got to be hands down the Hawkeye one, because what the actual hell is this? Now, I know it's pretty difficult to make a guy with just a bow and arrow cool and all, but this is just straight up atrocious. Here we have the artists over at NetEase putting their heart and soul into making Hawkeye look like a freaking badass. They turned him from just a dude that shoots arrows to Strider Hiryu from Marvel vs. Capcom. Like, come on man, he's already the lamest superhero in the Avengers, at least give him something to make him stand out. Making him bald is like kicking a man that's already down. Now, I know some people are gonna argue that the Marvel Avengers art style is supposed to be more quote-unquote realistic, and Marvel Rivals is more stylistic, so of course Marvel Avengers is gonna look worse. And I think that argument is a load of baloney. Just because a game is more quote-unquote realistic doesn't mean that it has to look awful. There are plenty of games out there that are based on having believable proportions but still look great. That isn't the issue though. The issue is that the developers clearly and absolutely had no passion in their craft when they were making this game. You can tell from how each of the character designs look so uninspired and how they all literally reused the same generic default pose because they couldn't be bothered to give each hero their own. Marvel Avengers' failure proved that it didn't fail because it was just another live service game in an oversaturated market. It failed because it was another soulless cash grab that tried to capitalize on an existing fanbase using a studio that had no business making a live service game in the first place. And the worst part is that this isn't even uncommon to see here in the Western AAA game industry, it's actually the norm. Time and time again, we see publishers dump hundreds of millions of dollars into making games that nobody wants, and then they complain that there's no one buying their crap products. And even the game journalists were so quick to say that the reason for why games like Concord failed so hard was because the hero shooter genre was just too oversaturated for anything else to thrive in the market. But Marvel Rivals proved that that statement wasn't true at all. The market is only oversaturated with uninspired and generic slop games. If you release a high quality game with its own unique X factor to make itself stand out, then it'll most likely perform well. This seems like common sense logic, but for some reason common sense isn't common anymore because everyone but game studios themselves can't figure this out for some reason. It's actually so astonishing how bad Western AAA gaming has fallen in the last couple of years that we needed to turn to Eastern studios to make something that fans have been asking for because Western ones lack the passion and polish that we're looking for. And this wasn't a sudden occurrence, this has been something that's been building up for quite a while now. In the last few years, there's been a growing animosity between game developers and gamers, to the point where developers in the West are actively developing titles with the express intent of sending a message in order to spite the toxic gamers. And then the consumers, in turn, don't buy their games because they look like they suck, which inevitably leads to said game studios getting shut down not too long after. Then those very same devs get laid off because their studio just lost a bunch of money. And now repeat this cycle for the next couple of years and you end up in the situation where we're in now, where a lot of AAA games are pretty much make or break for these studios because they spend such an obscene amount of money on stuff that really doesn't matter that much in the grand scheme of things. Like spending over $400 million in order to acquire an unknown studio with the express goal of creating an entirely brand new IP universe that spans multiple forms of media and is supposed to be on the same level as Star Wars. Yeah, the only people that this really matters to are the shareholders and CEOs, because no normal gamer is going to be excited for a brand new IP from a studio that they've never heard of before. Especially when that new IP looks like this. And the thing is that I don't even know if the West can even be saved at this point. I think that most of it is pretty much cooked from the top down because publishers are being greedier than ever while developers are actively refusing to listen to the communities. It's a whole circus over here and the clowns are the ones running it. Meanwhile, we have the Marvel Rivals developers who are learning English as a second language in order to speak to their Western audience in their primary language. They didn't have to do this dev update in English and they could have easily just spoken in Chinese with subtitles on, but they didn't. They chose to speak in English even though it's not their native tongue and they're not fluent in it. And what this does is that it shows that the developers care about listening to their fans, or at least seems to at least, which establishes a lot of goodwill and trust between the community and developers. Something that Western studios have lost a very long time ago. Okay, you know what they need to do in order to save the Western game industry? Every Western publisher should acquire an Eastern studio, whether it be from China, Japan, or Korea, and give them full freedom and full funding to make a game using a Western IP. And that'll probably still be more profitable than whatever the hell they're doing right now. Hey, if that's what it takes to make good games again, then by all means, I'll bow down to our Chinese overlords. But of course, I only jest. Or am I? Anyways, do you agree or disagree? Let me know down below and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content in the future. See ya.